legislation.
House has accepted the Minister's explanation. Grant Robertson.
Mr Speaker, following on from the chair of the Select Committee, I do want to say that this Education Amendment Bill number 4 is a good piece of legislation. It does a number of important things. But to coin a phrase, Mr Speaker, no man is an island, and this bill can't stand alone without it being looked at in the context of other relevant legislation. And I am going to refer to that in a moment. Mr Speaker, perhaps to start with where the House agrees, and that is around the importance of a number of the changes here, particularly those in relation to, for instance, private training establishment regulation. And it is fair to say that while private training establishments play a very important role in essentially filling the gaps, I believe, in the education system that the public institutions are not able to do. And many of them do a very good job in that and provide educational opportunities for people who perhaps wouldn't get those in other ways. They also provide a part of the arrangements that allow for international education for students to come to New Zealand as well, and therefore they play an important role. But the truth is there have been examples in recent times where private training establishments have not lived up to the marketing that they have given overseas. In some cases, extreme cases, people have essentially allowed degrees to be bought for very little actual work or study, and that is not good for the reputation of New Zealand internationally. And so I think it's important that there have been some moves in this bill to tighten up the way in which private training establishments are actually accredited and are able to offer programs and courses. Mr Speaker, can I perhaps offer at this point that I believe there are one or two other areas in terms of the overall registration of private training establishments that could still be looked at to further enhance the improvements that are in this bill. One of those is what might appear to be quite a simple point, but is actually quite important. That is the names that private training establishments use when they market offshore. And in fact, one of the cases that caused a problem in recent times around the question of private training establishments was an institution called the New Zealand Academy of Studies. And the New Zealand Academy of Studies was caught selling a business diploma for $12,000, and there was a related school which was called the City Language Academy, which was eventually deregistered for false advertising. When an institution is overseas and markets itself as the New Zealand Academy of Studies, it gives the impression that that is some kind of nationwide institution. And I do believe the time has come for us to look more carefully at whether or not we allow institutions to market themselves as the New Zealand Academy or the New Zealand Institute of something, because it does give an impression that in most cases will in fact be false about whether it is a nationwide institution. And so I would urge the government to think about that. I know my colleague Raymond Hoare has actually looked at this in terms of a private members bill, and I think it is something that should be considered, because it is an important part of the way that we market tertiary institutions or private training establishments. The other issue in terms of private training establishments that isn't covered by the improvements in this bill is around whether or not there needs to be some self-policing, whether we can actually get private training establishments to work together in the same ways that universities do through the organisation Universities New Zealand, and the same way that the polytechnics do through a couple of organisations that they have that bring together those the Institutes of Technologies and Polytechnics. I think that would help. It would raise the bar in terms of quality of private training, and I think that's an important factor. So while I welcome the changes on private training establishments in this bill, I think there is more that can be done to ensure that they do provide quality. I want to briefly refer to the creation of Education New Zealand, the combined agency that will work on marketing and promotion of New Zealand education overseas. I welcome this change. I think it is timely to bring this exercise together. As somebody who worked in this field and travelled to Asia to help promote the institution that I was working for, when we work together we do it better. We are a small country. One particular visit I was on was in Vietnam, and we went to a meeting with a number of tertiary providers, and the Vietnamese government officials said to us, will you be able to take 50,000 students over the next couple of years to do English language training? And that was a challenging task, Mr Speaker, for the institutions who were there. We couldn't do that, but by working together the institutions were able to take a large number of people there. But it will allow institutions to work more efficiently with government. It will allow Ministry of Education education officials to focus on what they need to focus on and stay focused, just as Mr Quinn is, and they'll be able to make sure that they have an excellent program for promoting New Zealand education. So I do welcome the changes to Education New Zealand that are in the bill here, and congratulate the new, I think he's the chair or the executive director, Mr Charles Finney, who I'm sure with his experience as a diplomat will be able to lead that organisation, and I do hope it will see the continuation of the importance of international education, export education, as part of the New Zealand economy. Mr Speaker, I do now though want to return to the question that dominated the committee stage of the debate, and that is around the changes to the management of compulsory student service fees. And just to clarify for those new to the debate, this is the kind of fee that gets charged in a tertiary institution for things like the student health and counselling services, perhaps the careers advice service, often a creche facility that might be provided by the institution. And these fees are charged by the institution. They are compulsory, they are part of enrolling. And obviously the problem emerged in recent years that there was a massive increase, over 100% increase in some cases in tertiary institutions. And one of the institutions that's been singled out in the debate earlier was Canterbury University, which did increase the fee enormously in 2009 and 10. And I just want to quote from Rod Carr, the Vice-Chancellor of Canterbury University, when he was explaining the increase to students. And this is actually what he said. Carr said, quote, "Students were getting a crap deal from the government, which was refusing to fund higher education at the levels it should. Quote, the underlying problem is we have not been successful in advocating for more money for higher education. The government made it very clear the real resources allocated to the universities will reduce over the next 3 to 5 years. And that is a significant problem, Mr Speaker, that we have to acknowledge, that this government has failed to invest in tertiary education to the extent needed at this time. When we're in a recessionary environment, more people are looking for tertiary education opportunities, and the funding has simply not been forthcoming from this government. In fact, Minister Joyce said his goal was to dampen demand in tertiary education, which I think is the opposite of what should be happening. If we are an aspirational country, if we're ambitious for New Zealand, then we need to be encouraging people into tertiary education. So some tertiary institutions, unfortunately, without the level of government funding that they wanted, have put up student service levies in reaction to that. That's actually wrong, Mr Speaker. That's not what they should be doing. Student service levies should be for student services. And that's why I welcome this change in the bill that will make it more transparent. There will be more accountability on institutions to provide student services with the money that they generate from student service levies, and it will be possible to cap those levies if the Minister is not satisfied. The Minister will have a very hands-on role here in being able to direct institutions to the categories of student services that they provide and even the types of student services that they provide. That is a good thing. But as I said, this bill is not an island, Mr Speaker. It exists alongside the Voluntary Student Association Membership Bill with respect to Mr Peachey, which is related, for two reasons. The first of those reasons is that student associations provide important services on campus, which they will now not be able to provide if the Voluntary Student Association Membership Bill passes. That is the experience from Australia. 75% of the services that were provided there went west when the VSM bill went through. So that over there. So that will mean that those services will be transferred on to the institutions to provide, and if they're working in a capped environment, that will put a great deal of pressure on them. The other factor is students' associations will not be there to be able to be part of this decision-making process. There will be no one for the Minister to actually consult with in terms of representatives. So the two bills are linked. I urge the government to rethink their support for the VSM bill, because this bill in and of itself is a good thing. It will increase accountability and transparency around student service levies, but the quality of services that students can get is compromised by the VSM bill, and in turn compromises this bill. But with that, Mr Speaker, we do support this bill. It does a number of useful things in the tertiary education sector, and I commend it to the House.
Mr Speaker.
Hilary Calvert.